This lesson will be discussing the concatenate function. To concatenate is to link something together. The concatenate function is used to link multiple cells together. It is written as equal to concatenate. The syntax for concatenate is equal to concatenate, in brackets, select the first cell. Now choose your preferred delimiter, then select the second cell to link them together. Delimiters are spacing or symbols used to separate content elements apart from each other. Example of delimiter could be comma, semicolon, quotes, braces. It could be pipes or slashes. So these delimiters could be used to separate the first cell from the second cell. There are cases where you don't need to use the delimiter. You could just join the two cells together. Let's take a look at how that works on Excel. We have the employee data. Let's try to concatenate the first name and the last name to produce the full name. This simply means we're joining the first name and the last name so we can have full name instead of having first name and last name column. Now to do this, start by typing the syntax of the concatenate, which is concatenate. This is the description. Join several text strings into one text string. So select the first text, which is the first name. That's cell B2, comma. The second cell, which is the last name, C2, bracket, enter. Notice that there is no space between the first name and the last name, which does not really look good. That brings us to the delimiter part. So let's try this again by adding a delimiter and see the difference between the two. So we have equal to concat, select the first cell, comma. Now how do we separate the first name and the last name with a space? We'll put the space in a quotation mark. Remember, the delimiter could be anything. It could be space, it could be slash, it could be a quotation mark. So in this case, we choose to put an empty space in between our quotation mark. That would give us a space between the first name and the last name. So you put your comma, and now you have the last name. Close the bracket and you enter. Notice the difference between the first and the second. The first one, there is no space between the first and second name, making it hard to understand. But the second one, there is space between the two. Let's try to put full stop in between the names. So we have equal to concat, select the first name. Now we're using full stop. Remember to always put your delimiter in quotation mark, comma. Select the next cell, C2, enter. Now you can see that in between the first and the second name, there is a full stop. Let's try another use case of concatenation. Say, for example, we want to generate official emails for these employees. Now, To generate the emails, we need to use their first and last name to get the email. We need to use the first and last name to generate an official email. So say, for example, these staffs work at Microsoft. So we need to use their first name and last name at Microsoft.com. To do that, you start by typing your concatenate function. Now select the first cell, which is their first name. Now, what delimiter should we use in this case? You can either have their first name and last name at Microsoft.com, or you can choose to use a delimiter in between. For this first example, let's try to have their first name and last name joined together. So we have B2, comma, you select the second cell, C2, which is the last name, comma. Now we have the official email, which is at Microsoft.com. Remember to always put it in. If you're typing anything other than a cell, remember to always put it in quotation mark. Then you enter. Then we have the first name and last name at Microsoft.com. So say, for example, you want to have a delimiter in between the first and last name. You want to use a full stop to separate the first name and the last name. You can have it this way: concat, select the first cell, comma, put your period, that's your full stop, comma, the next cell, that's the last name, comma. Now you put the email, which is at Microsoft.com. Remember to always close, open, and close. Enter, and you have it. So this way, we have the first name, period, the second name at Microsoft.com. Try to concat the first name and the last name to have the full name, and try to generate an email for the staff using the first and the last name and using the period delimiter in between the first and the last name. If you have something like this, then congratulations, you've been able to understand and use the concatenate function.